Thank you to members of the jury for taking this time out of your lives, paying attention to both the evidence and the witnesses that were presented by both sides today.
Can we publish that? Yes. Oh, wait a second. Oh. I don't have it. I still have WebEx. Maybe. Can you get rid of WebEx on the screen first? You have to click on it manually and take it off. It should. Are you showing it, Mr. Pomeroy? Very good. Now it should be showing up. Nope. Maybe you need to click out of WebEx and then come back in. Use your mouse to minimize WebEx. We're going to sit tight. We've got a technical difficulty. Nobody leave. We're going to go get a tech support. It's just down the hall. It gives us about 30 seconds. This courtroom was opened this year, or last year. So it's been here about a year, and we've had problems from day one. We've had a lot of problems. We're on the jury's TV too. Should be working. Are you doing, or is Mr. Pomeroy doing the? You're doing it.
That's probably why. I was connecting it to the lectern because that's where.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. There we go.
Okay. Thank you. You're okay. You go ahead. Play first one.
What's your name, man? Kevin? What's going on, Kevin? Is this your home?
fucking shot him. Kevin Ellis, the defendant, admitted that on July 12th...
Let's stop you for a second. I'm going to give you a mic so that we can hear you. Is it on?
It is on. Is it not high enough?
Is it working? Because you're really hard to hear.
Can you hear me?
But that's a lot better.
On July 12th, 2024, the defendant Kevin Ellis admitted that he shot and killed his brother-in-law, Matthew Restelli, in American Fork, Utah. The defense said it best in their opening statement when they said, this was an ambush, couldn't have been self-defense. But really the only question you have to answer today, we'll answer all the other questions, is whether this was self-defense or if this was murder. And the best instruction that will help you do that, if you could turn to me, would be page 46, instruction 46. And it says, a defendant can only use self-defense to the extent that the defendant reasonably believes that the force is necessary to defend himself or a third party against another person's imminent use of unlawful force. Additionally, a defendant can only use lethal force, like shooting someone, if the defendant reasonably believes it is necessary to prevent death or serious bodily injury to the defendant or a third person as a result of another person's imminent use of unlawful force. So as we go through this evidence, I want you to remember the defendant has to reasonably believe that it was necessary to counteract imminent unlawful force. Now, the defendant will have you believe that he's a manipulated pawn, that he was just a tool of his mother, and the defendant didn't really choose to murder Matt that night. The evidence shows, in this case, that pawns don't do what Kevin Ellis did when he shot and killed Matt. And for as much evidence has been presented over these days, this case is actually very simple, and it really comes down to three facts. Kevin Ellis is in the living room with a pistol. There's no need to complicate it. At every single level, what happened was murder and not self-defense. Matt Restelli was excited to see his wife and kids again. He was coming from California, driving 10 hours to come and pick them up. He was not angry. He was not agitated. And he had absolutely no idea that when he walked in that front door, that the defendant was there lying in wait, ready to shoot him 7 times, 3 times in the back. Matt was given the defendant's address. He was given the gate code to the gated neighborhood. He had to drive 10 hours, all while the defendant's whole family was tracking him there. Matt's loud diesel truck pulled in front of Kevin's house, parked over the cardboard so he wouldn't leak any oil on the street. He turned on his flashers, alerting anyone else that he had stopped. The blinds to the front window of Kevin's house were open, looking directly onto Matt's truck. And as Matt went into the residence, the lights were off. The defendant lay in wait, gun in his holster. Kevin had already been alerted by Rachel that Matt was close, minutes before. Orm, find my. The front door was unlocked. The toys in the bug screen had been moved from the front. And a blanket had been put over the couch, side of the couch, right next to the front door. Make sure that none of Matt's blood would spray on it when he was shot and killed. Matt came inside to the residence and respectfully took off his shoes before he stepped onto the carpet. And he was then shot by the defendant. Matt died near the stairs where his 2 young children were sleeping upstairs. The defendant did not provide any life-saving measures, but rather the defendant waited for Matt to die so that his mother, Tracy Grist, could put a knife in his hand, his lifeless hand, so they could make it look like self-defense. When they made sure that Matt was dead, that's when they finally called 911. This is not a case of defensive habitation. This is not defense. It's not self-defense, perfect or imperfect. This was an ambush, planned killing, cold-blooded murder, a staged crime scene to make it look like self-defense. When you are deliberating and you go back there and you feel like the evidence seems voluminous, I implore you to make it simple and just go back to the timeline. And it's easy to start at 10:01 p.m. This is when Kevin Ellis received a text from Rachel Jorgensen, 5 minutes before Matt arrived. You can see that he read it, 10:01, 40 seconds. And remember, where was Kevin Ellis's phone found? It was found upstairs in his bedroom on the nightstand next to his ID and the dollar bill with the cocaine on it. 10:06 p.m. David Kruger testified that his surveillance video picked up Matt's truck coming. And we don't know whether that was 10:06:00 or 10:06:29. We know it was probably somewhere in between there because the video lasts 30 seconds. And it didn't roll over to 10:07. By the time Matt arrives, by the time the video ends, somewhere between 10:06:30 and 10:06:59. By the time the video ends, you can tell that Matt hasn't turned his flashers on, so we know he hasn't gone out of the car yet. We know that he's not exactly excited to see Tracy, or he's not going to really rush to the door. But we know by the time he does get to the door, it's probably closer to 10:07, whether that's before, a little bit before, or sometime after. We know that Matt enters a residence at roughly 10:07 p.m. We know also that when he entered the residence, he took off his sandals because Officer Neal came with Officer Guerra, was the second officer in, and from his body cam, you could see that the sandals were at the front of the door. And later, they were disturbed and moved by EMTs who kind of moved around some of the evidence before they were able to secure the scene. This is the evidence showing that his sandals were like that before the scene was disturbed. So we know that Matt came in and politely took off his shoes before the carpet. Kate and Brent Laney, they hear roughly 6 or so gunshots. They talked about a barrage of gunshots and then a little gap and then maybe another one, but they were fairly certain it was 10:07. They were watching a movie with their kids. Caitlin was pretty sure there were gunshots. She was really nervous. Talked about it with her husband for a little bit and couldn't decide whether, because of the time of year, July 12th's in between the July 4th and the second July 4th, which is July 24th, whether those are fireworks or not. But then ultimately decided that she would text Tracy, "Are you guys okay?" And she texts at 10:08:33 p.m. She doesn't hear back from Tracy. Talks to her husband some more, looks outside, sees the truck. She remembers what Tracy had told her about her daughter and her husband, and she decides to call the police.
July 12, 2024, 22:00 9:42.
911, what's the address of your emergency?
112 South 920 East, my neighbors.
What city?
American Fork.
And the address one more time?
I'm at 112 South 920 East, it's my neighbors, but
What's the phone number you're calling in case we're disconnected?
559-907-7484.
Okay, so the address is your home, it's your neighbors, and tell me exactly what's going on with them.
I'm pretty sure I just heard gunshots.
July 12.
When Caitlin, the neighbor, gets off the phone, she has her husband call Tracy. 10:13:43 goes unanswered. And it's not until 10:15:46 p.m. that Tracy calls the police. And when you listen to her 911 call, the dispatcher thinks it's Caitlin, and she calls her Caitlin. And Tracy immediately puts this together, and you can hear it in her voice. Her voice drops. But Tracy continues to tell 911 that Matt came into the house with a knife and that Kevin shot him. He then asks for an ambulance. She says that Matt is still breathing. And then about that point, you can hear Officer Guerra knocking on the door, having been previously dispatched by Caitlin.
July 12, 2024, 22:15:45.
911, what's the address of the emergency?
114 South 920 East, American Fork.
Okay, tell me that one more time to make sure that I got it correct.
114 South 920 East.
Okay. And is this Caitlin?
No.
What number in case we get disconnected?
801-651-2695.
And my daughter?
Tracy.
Okay.
My daughter's husband came here. And going through a separation. And he brought a knife and my son shot him.
Okay,
I need an ambulance.
okay, I understand, and it's at this home.
Yes.
And who is it to you, your husband?
My daughter's husband.
Okay. Is he conscious or breathing?
I think he's breathing.
Okay, I've got an ambulance out that way. I've also got an officer that's coming into the area. Do you think he's beyond help, or do you think you may be able to CPR? Okay, are you comfortable checking on him? Where is the gun at?
My kitchen counter
Where is he at?
in the hallway.
Are you comfortable checking to see if he's breathing?
Kevin, check to see if he's breathing. Check if he's a pulse. Check.
That may be the officer. Somebody needs to go let them in.
Okay. Okay. They're here.
Okay, I'll go ahead and let. Okay, I'm gonna.
Now you can hear from that audio when Officer Guerra knocks on the door and how quickly Kevin answers that door. By the time that Tracy calls the police, they're already in position. Kevin's already in the front room, separated between Tracy and Matthew, who's in the hall, and Catherine's upstairs.
July
Officer Arguera opens the door. You can see that it's dark inside. There's no lights on inside the house. There's no bug screen on the door. You can see the blanket draped over the couch as he walks in. And you hear Kevin. You see Kevin. He's acting like it just happened. And this happened over 8 minutes ago, 7, 8 minutes ago. What does he say? He says, Guy, Guy had knife, and I. And it's a little bit choppy and hard to hear because Officer Guerra keeps talking over him. But if you listen to it, you can hear him say, Guy had knife, and I.
How's it going? What's going on? Can I come in? What's going on? What's going on? Go ahead. Where is she?
That's not a guy. That's Kevin's brother-in-law that he's known for 15 years. And he's acting like he doesn't even know who came in, like some intruder just came in with a knife. Ten 19:37 p.m., a few minutes later, Officer Neal pats down Kevin.
So I'm gonna have you stand up. I'm just gonna pat you down real quick, okay? You don't have any weapons on you or anything like that? Nothing you're made aware of?
I know I got $4 in my pocket. That's it.
Okay. Okay, take a seat. Yeah.
Almost the exact same time that Kevin's being searched, Officer Laycock takes Kate out of the house. And as he's taking her out of the house, she tells him that she heard yelling. She was expecting her husband to come so they can have a conversation, and she heard yelling.
I'll have you come out here with this officer, okay?
I know.
You're okay. It's okay. It's okay. What's going on tonight?
Something could be a I was upstairs waiting for him. I don't know what happened. I don't know what. I heard yelling and I don't know what.
Do you have any weapons or anything?
No, it's the only thing.
I'm just gonna check you real quick, okay? I'm sorry, I know this is...
No. I have my earbuds in my pocket. That's the only thing I have in my pocket.
Sorry, is that the
Yeah,
this
that was
okay.
it.
Okay, you're good. I don't see anything else on it. You're good if you want to go take a seat next to her on the grass, okay? I searched her for weapons. She's good.
Then 22, still fairly soon after the incident, all the parties are still outside. Officer Simpson arrives on scene. Talks to Kevin. Kevin admits to shooting Matthew. Officer Neal asks Officer Simpson to go kind of keep an eye on Tracy and Kate. And at this time, Tracy is panicking. Remember, this is only still a few minutes from when she called the police. She's panicking because she knows that Caitlin had called the police. She doesn't know what time Caitlin called the police. She doesn't know if their pre-plan is going to hold up. And the pre-plan was this. Kate would stay upstairs so she could have plausible deniability, that they would shoot and kill Matthew, that would put a knife in his hand. They had to wait, one, to put a knife in his hand before they had to wait for him to die, because even you could hear Kevin saying, be careful, he still might be moving. It's not easy to put a knife in somebody's hand that's still alive. And two, you couldn't risk that Matthew survived, because if he survived, then they were all in trouble. So that's why there was the delay. But Tracy doesn't know how long it was before Caitlin called or what Caitlin told the police. So the plan had been that Matt came in, that there was some sort of confrontation with Kevin, and Matt had a knife, and that Kevin shot him in self-defense. And Matt was an intruder, but he just came into the house, uninvited, shot. And it was self-defense. So when you hear Tracy on the lawn, and you can see her panicking, you can see the panic in her face, and she's trying to get over to Kate so she can tell her, like, hey, I just got this new piece of information. And she's not able to do that because Officer Neal clearly sees that something weird is going on. He goes back over there. So what does Tracy do? She yells, Kevin, I don't know what to do. Don't say anything. She doesn't say, I don't know what's going on. She says, I don't know what to do. That's her saying, look, the plan is gone awry. It's off.
What's your name, man? Kevin? What's going on, Kevin? Is this your home?
It's not.
Okay.
Hey man, I get some information from it. I'm gonna just hang out with those two.
Yep. I'm just hanging out with you guys.
Can I
Can you what?
hold my daughter?
Yeah. You could, yeah. Were you separated by officers? Did the officers separate you two?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay. If you would like to sit next to your daughter, you're
I
welcome
wouldn't
to.
touch her.
No, that's okay. You know, are they okay sitting next to each other? Oh, okay, never mind. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I just
No,
want to.
I do need you to be separated.
Fine, fine.
That was my bad. If you want to pick up your phone and come back over here to where that would be great. That's okay.
We're gonna go through an interview process. We typically will keep all parties separated. Okay, right here with me. That's how you just stay separated for right now.
I have no idea what to do, so don't say anything, please, because I don't know what.
Okay.
Hi.
Really need you to be patient so we can move you guys around, okay?
Hi.
All right.
You also know this is what's going through Tracy's head. Because after there'd been a murder at her house, after she goes to the police station and she gets back home, what time does she send Caitlin Laney a text? 5:17 a.m. Saying thank you. Casual, right? 5 o'clock in the morning, said murder at your house. Doesn't hear back from her, so she sends her another text a little over an hour later. Long, long night. She's trying to get Caitlin to engage in her so she can find out what time she called. Finally, at 6:57 a.m., Caitlin responds, was it your son-in-law? There's some small talk back and forth, and finally, Tracy just says, what time did you call 911? Caitlin, still thinking and responding to the small talk, says, yes, huge, huge hugs, get some rest, please let me know if we can help. Tracy realizes that last one was a little strong. She backs up a little bit. Did you call 911? Or did another neighbor? Tracy knows it was Caitlin, and she needs to find it out. I was on a phone call with 911, and they were there so fast. Caitlin says, I called it 10:07. Obviously, Caitlin is confusing what time she heard the shots versus what time she called. But at that point, Tracy now has the timeline that she needed and what she'd been worrying about. Is it possible to put that down for a second? To black screen. And it's why Tracy's story changed from the 911 call to Matt came in with a knife. My son Kevin shot him. Her story with Nikosha where she doesn't know the timeline, where she's like, I didn't see anything. I didn't hear anything. Just came in, he said hi, he turned the corner, and he was shot and killed. I have no idea where Kevin is. It's a complete turnaround because she didn't know what she could say because she didn't know how long her window was for when 911 was called. At this point, I want to talk about what is evidence and what is not evidence. Evidence is what is presented to you before trial, the stuff that you've seen in the trial, the exhibits, the stuff you hear from the witnesses. What is not evidence is anything I'm saying, not anything that any of the attorneys have said. That's not evidence. You only consider what you've actually seen from the witnesses, physical exhibits, and things that will go back with you. Now, there are two different kinds of evidence. You have what's called direct evidence, and you have circumstantial evidence. And if I could turn your attention to jury instruction 22. Now, the law treats direct evidence and circumstantial evidence exactly the same. Direct evidence can prove a fact by itself. It usually comes from a witness who perceived firsthand the fact in question. For example, if a witness testified he looked outside and saw it was raining, that would be direct evidence that it had rained. In this case, direct evidence would be defendant saying, I shot him, or I was afraid for my life, so I shot in self-defense.
I was afraid for my life and I shot in self-defense.
That would be an example of direct evidence that Kevin shot and killed Matthew Restelli. Another example of direct evidence would be when Kate testified that the defendant was back at the house after sushi when Tracy went over the plans to murder Matt that night. That is direct evidence that Kevin was involved in the murder and the conspiracy of Matt. There's also another kind of evidence called circumstantial evidence. Circumstantial evidence is indirect evidence. It usually comes from a witness who perceives a set of related events, but not the fact in question. However, based on the testimony, someone could conclude that the fact in question had occurred. For example, if a witness testified that she looked outside and saw the ground was wet, people were closing their umbrellas, that would be circumstantial evidence that it had rained. In this case, an example of circumstantial evidence would be Matt lying face down on the ground when Officer Guerra arrives. That would show that no life-saving measures had been done on Matt. First of all, he's not on his back, so being on the front with a knife in his hand, it doesn't seem possible to do life-saving measures there. Again, when he starts CPR, he hears Matt's ribs crack, so nobody had attempted CPR previously. That would be circumstantial evidence. Nobody had completed life-saving measures on Matt. There's also circumstantial evidence that Matt was shot soon after entering the house. He died close to the front door. The bullet casings were all in the front room. There was a blanket covering the couch right next to the door. Tracy had taken down the bug netting. Kate had moved the toys to a different room. These show that there was a plan to shoot Matt as he walked through the front door. That's corroborated by the physical evidence on the scene, the circumstantial evidence on the scene. Now, I want to talk to you about what the burden the state carries when proving the defendant guilty. When the trial started, the defendant is presumed innocent. But now that the evidence has been presented, and after closing statements, it will be up to you to determine whether the state has met its burden of proving this case beyond a reasonable doubt. Proof beyond a reasonable doubt does not mean, and we can go to Exhibit 21 if you want to read where that is. Proof beyond a reasonable doubt does not mean that proof that overcomes every possible doubt. It does not require disproving all possibilities or other theories. All that is required is that you are firmly convinced of the defendant's guilt. I like to think of a box, and imagine a box, and the box, evidence can go into the box. And there's a line inside the box that says firmly convinced. And when the evidence reaches that point on the line, that reaches the firmly convinced, and that's the point where you can convict the defendant. You are firmly convinced of the defendant's guilt. Now, each person will have a different box, because not all of us are the same. So some people may have a bigger box or a different line, because every person will be different about what point they are firmly convinced. For some people, it could be a single piece of evidence. It could be one single piece of direct evidence where Kate said, Kevin was there when Tracy told us the murder was going to happen, and he was in on it. It could be one piece of evidence. Or it could be a combination of direct and circumstantial, of all the other circumstances surrounding the incident. That's the reason it does not require the state to prove every possible outcome. It just requires that each of you is firmly convinced of the defendant's guilt. Now, I'd like to turn your attention to the instructions. If we could start with instruction 43. And this is the murder form that you look at when you decide whether Kevin is guilty of murder or not. And you go through the form, and it's just, can the state prove these things? That Kevin Stanley Ellis intentionally or knowingly caused the death of Matt Restelli, intending to cause serious bodily injury to another. Kevin Stanley Ellis committed an act clearly dangerous to human life that caused the death. So 1 and 2 are undisputed. Then it comes down to number 3, whether the defense of perfect self-defense does not apply. And the defense of habitation does not apply. So if you find that perfect self-defense does not apply, that you believe it was an ambush, which would also mean that defense of habitation does not apply, at that point, you would go to the roadmap on section 42, which would then take you to the explanation of imperfect self-defense, 55. Imperfect self-defense applies, and you only do this if you found the defendant guilty of murder. If you find him not guilty of murder, you don't need to continue. But if you do find him guilty of murder and that though self-defense does not apply, defense of habitation does not apply, then you have to also find whether the state has proven that imperfect self-defense does not apply. And if we could go to the middle part, imperfect self-defense applies when the defendant caused the death of another while incorrectly but reasonably believing that his conduct was legally justified or excused. Again, an ambush wouldn't help on imperfect self-defense. So if you found that imperfect self-defense did not apply, then you would go to the special verdict form. And then you would find that if the state has shown that imperfect self-defense does not apply, you would check the state has proven beyond a reasonable doubt, the bottom one, that imperfect self-defense does not apply. If you found that the state has not met its burden, you would check the top one. The defendant, let's talk again about Kevin. Kevin wasn't dragged into this. He wasn't dragged into murdering Matt. The defendant chose to murder Matt. After the murder was done, he acted exactly like someone who had committed murder would act. And then he did what he needed to do to make it look like self-defense. Let's talk about how Matt acted. Matt was not angry. He was not violent when he came to the defendant's house. He believed that his wife and kids wanted to come home.
You gonna come inside? Are you gonna come inside and help me load up? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The front door is always unlocked, okay?
So that's all Matt knew. Nothing ever changed between that time and the time he got there. He thought, obviously he wasn't excited to see Tracy, but he thought he was welcome to come in. There's no reason for him to be acting mad or agitated. We also know that from the text messages that he received that day between Tracy and Kate, hey there, please let Matt know he's welcome to spend the night, that she'll be as sweet as candy. Or else if you guys want, I can give you $100 or towards a hotel, or so you can stop if you need to. Okay, Kate says, I'll tell him. Very good. And again, 8:13 p.m., she's still asking him to come inside.
Hi, Daddy. Okay. That's fine. That's fine. Yeah, you're gonna come in though, right?
Yeah, but it's going to make it easier for me.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be easy. No, it's gonna be easy.
Okay. So you had Kate put cardboard down. Kate put cardboard down. He was given the gate code, 9 o'clock after the last communication. There's no fighting. There's nothing that could even happen to have changed what Matt knew. Parks over the cardboard, politely. He takes his shoes off, respectfully, to not step on the carpet. It's not something that somebody who's angry or agitated would do. Now, Kate initially told police, Officer Laycock, that she heard yelling. Tracy did not. Tracy told Detective Nicosia she didn't hear anything. She said that Matt was there, said, "Hi, where's Katie?" She said, "He's up the stairs," and that she said he looked agitated, turned around the corner, and then she heard gunshots. So we know that there was no confrontation. And how do we know that? Because if there had been a confrontation, Tracy would have said there was a confrontation because it would have bolstered her claim. So we can assume that it didn't happen. There was no confrontation. Tracy told the truth about what she could tell the truth about. If that had been the truth, she would have said it. But Kate didn't know that the plan had changed, so that's why she said that she heard yelling. Again, Tracy also said she didn't know where Kevin was. She had no idea. So if Kevin had ran in fear and ran to get a gun, Tracy would have said that too, because that also would have bolstered the plan, because it was true. But because Tracy didn't say that to the police, it wasn't true. It's also why she says she didn't see a knife. She doesn't say when Matt came in that she saw a knife. She can only say that he was holding a knife after. But initially she told the police that Matt came in with a knife, and they completely backtracked that. In fact, their own expert testified that the knife had been planted. People that act in self-defense do not plant weapons in the people that you just shot if you believe that you were justified. That is what people do that do murder, not self-defense. The knife was planted. Tracy planted the knife. Pretty obvious on all the evidence, but even their own expert had to say, yes, that was obviously planted. Shot through the wrist, being held backwards. Probably the most obvious was the blood staining on the carpet. Not matching the wounds. None of that blood could match any of the wounds. Had to have come from the wrist. And we know that the knife probably came from, Tracy. She's the one that had access to it in California when she's searching up my tactical promos, and she showed Kate it a few days before the shooting. She showed Kate the knife. And if Matt had brought the knife, Kate's not pleading guilty to murder. Now let's look at Kevin. What do we know about Kevin? We know that on June 15th, Kevin had found his purpose. He won. He's going to nationals in pool. He's really good. Really good. Good enough to compete in nationals. Yes, Tracy says. You're getting $550 a person for travel expense. He's really excited. Really excited. So, in early August, when Tara Lynn's getting text messages from Kate and Tracy, like, oh, I get it, Kevin's mad at me. Of course he's mad at them. This whole thing was for Kate, and Tracy's plan didn't work, but he's the only one that got charged. So of course he's upset. The plan he was told was going to work didn't. What else do we know? Well, we know that Kevin was aware of Kate's credit card, the Costco credit card, so she could drive out on June 20th. We know that Kate sent him the voicemail between Diane and Tracy saying that it was just a breather, that Kate just needed some space, which wasn't true. We know that, and this is the Costco card, if you want to look at 618. Tracy says the card came in the mail. She doesn't have to explain what the card is, because it's assumed that Kevin knows what it is, because they've talked about it. GPS. And again, Tracy sends him this text message that she got from Matt. Text me the address where my kids are by tomorrow morning. You don't text me the address, I'll be calling the sheriff for kidnapping. And how does Kevin respond? How about no? Does that sound like a pawn or a participant? And again, let's go to June 26th. Well, we know also as early as June 21st, when Kate asked, can you add Kevin to the AirTag? He's here. Oh, he liked your shitty emoji, Tara Lynn. They laugh about that, right? Kevin gets added to the AirTag. Well, he can track Matt. And then on June 26th, Kate says, what day are you coming back? Wondering for Olaf. Which is very interesting for a couple reasons. One, the family testified that they only talk about Olaf, so the kids don't hear. This is a text message. This is code. Olaf. Interesting as well because when you get a nickname is used to describe a trait about that person. Family has known Matt for over a decade, and the secret nickname they gave him was Olaf, the bubbly, talkative snowman from Frozen. So when the defense gets up here, they say all the ways in which family thought Matt was dangerous, like that he owned a gun legally, or that he liked to have a beer in his hand, often, or that he could get mad because his wife secretly kidnapped his kids without telling him, or that he likes to talk about boring things like mountain biking. Remember what they really thought of Matt when they talked badly about him in secret. We also know that on July 11th, 2024, Kevin was in the vicinity of Kate when she was having that attorney phone call. She did not appear concerned or attempt to hide any of that conversation from Kevin when she's telling the attorney that there had been no abuse in the relationship. And on the morning of July 12th, 2024, the date of the murder of Matthew Restelli, Kate asked Kevin to watch her kids so she can go make her story of not being able to drive or being able to rent the car more believable. So from the time they made up that story the night before, Tracy and Kate, and the time she asked Kevin to watch the kids, they've clearly had a conversation because she's talking to him like she already knows what she's talking about. Does that sound like a pawn or a participant? Later in the day, Kevin gets a call from Tracy at 2:01 p.m. asking him to go to sushi. Then at 2:14 p.m., 13 minutes later, Tracy searches It's Happening meme. Around the same time, she's involved in the ruse with Kate, talking about, oh, I'm so glad you're going back, honey bunches. You know, glad you're going to make it work. Kevin is in the middle of all of it. Shortly after sushi, Kate testified when they came back on the front lawn. Tracy discussed the plans to murder Matt with Kevin and Kate. At 10:01 p.m., Kevin gets a text message from Rachel. Rachel only sent it to Kevin and Tracy, not the one person that actually would need to know that Matt was coming. One person that didn't have Find My, apparently, Kate. It's kind of cryptic the way she sends it. Open Find My, or Find My, where she's, hey, Matt's coming over, here's the situation, when she texted Tim. And then, right as he reads that message, that's where the cocaine is found. The defendant did cocaine that night. Goes downstairs, lays in wait, in the dark, with the blinds open, with the door unlocked, the gun in a holster in his pocket, waiting for Matt to walk inside. Kevin did not perform any life-saving measures. Kate heard him to be careful, might still be moving as Tracy planted the knife. And finally, Kevin participated in the charade when police arrived. He was already in place. He enters that door right as Officer Guerra knocks. There's really no reason for him to be over there if there's been this shooting and they've been in there for 8 minutes. The gun's already on the other side of the table, but he's there like it just happened. Knows his spot in the plan. But there was also no information learned about Matt. On the 12th, there was no new information from any of the family members about Matt and the dangerousness of Matt. All that we heard is that Kate had talked him into coming out. Kate had talked Matt into coming out. Carolyn knew that. She told Rachel, stop talking. Rachel knew it. Tracy knew it. Kate knew it. The only information that changed on the 12th was that Kate knew she couldn't get a divorce the way she wanted it to. She'd have to go back to California if she wanted to get divorced. That's the only new information. And you heard from Tim Ellis, the peacekeeper. And he told you that there was a loose plan in place prior to July 12th, where he would go over if Matt showed up, and they would talk about it, and he would keep the peace. But by July 12th, 2:25 p.m., Kevin's en route to sushi. Rachel's cleared the house out. She got Aurora to come up. She got Jacob to leave. What does she tell Tim? Don't come. Why? Because they don't need a peacekeeper at that point. That's not the plan. Additionally, and finally, let's talk about the architect of the plan. Tracy is the architect of the plan. But also the most important part of a murder plan is the murder. You think Tracy, is it reasonable Tracy had Kate invite Matt out, driving all the way from California, with the murder portion of the murder plan still in question? Remember what Tracy said to Kate. Either Kevin will shoot Matt, and if he won't, then I will. This statement shows that Kevin chose to be a part of that conspiracy. Tracy isn't going to remove the bug screen. She isn't going to move the toys out of the front room. And she especially is not going to put that blanket over the couch all the way to the floor, right next to the door. If the shooter doesn't know that's where he's supposed to shoot Matt, that makes absolutely zero sense. You heard Kate testify that when Kevin was told by Tracy after sushi what the plan was, that his demeanor seemed unchanged. He didn't seem bothered by it. You also heard family members testify Kevin wasn't violent. He was a great uncle, had lots of friends. You also heard that Kevin did cocaine that night. Reason that Kevin did cocaine that night isn't because he's a drug user. It's because he needed that to get over that last little bit of conscience that was telling him not to do it, not to murder his brother-in-law. So in the end, Kevin chose murder, not as a pawn, as a participant. Because Kevin chose to do it, It was an ambush, and there's no self-defense. Premeditation, perfect self-defense, no imperfect self-defense. Because he's a party to the offense in helping Tracy plant the knife, he's guilty of conspiracy. Because he murdered Matt feet from where his children were. They could have heard the shooting. He's guilty of 2 counts of domestic violence in presence of a child, 1 for each of his little kids that are under 18. Because he used cocaine to help him in this, guilty of possession of cocaine. Because he used a firearm, he's guilty of weapon by a restricted person, because he had cocaine as a user and had a firearm. I would ask you to convict the defendant for all the charges, because this is what the defendant chose to do. Thank you.